Seth Davis, Sports Illustrated, CBS College Hoop analyst, as well as host of the Seth Davis Show on CampusInsiders.com. I just saw a prop bet here, Seth, that said Kentucky, it's 20-1, Kentucky will not trail during the NCAA tournament. Wouldn't you take that bet? That they will trail maybe 2-0 or 1-0?
Yeah, they're going to trail at some point. Yeah. Hey, it's hard to win this thing, Dan. You know, I mean, it's hard to win 6 games, and the closer they get to it, the tighter that collar is going to get. You know, and they're going to play some good teams. I mean, you're talking about potentially playing Maryland or West Virginia in a Sweet 16 game. I mean, those are good teams, and you're still 4 wins away. So the idea that they're never even going to trail, I would take that. Not that I would, nothing I say should be taken for any type of actual wagering purposes. Of course, you understand.
Entertainment purposes only.
But I do not believe in betting on the NCAA tournament.
No, you do not. Repeat after me. I'm also looking at Kentucky, the biggest favorite to win in the last 40 years. Now, what's it say about college basketball? What's it say about Kentucky?
It just says where we are. I mean, are they a bigger favorite than? I don't know what. I guess if it's a Vegas sportsbook question, I'd love to see the numbers on 1991 UNLV. And it's interesting because that team played in a weaker conference, and I think they won their games by an average of literally like 20 points a game.
Yep.
So, I mean, this Kentucky team, they've been tested now. I mean, they needed to go to overtime at home to beat Ole Miss. And they have, faced some late deficits. They're extremely fortunate to win at LSU. That was the closest one. They trailed late, I think by 7 points at Georgia a few weeks ago.
Almost lost to A&M.
What's that?
They almost lost to A&M.
And Texas. And by the way, that day Texas A&M did not have its best player. So, look, they can be beat. Will they be beat? I don't think so. I would never have thought that I'd ever take a single team against the field. This is one case where I would. But, this notion that they can't be beat, I hope nobody honestly thinks that they can't be beaten. Of course they can.
Yeah, I just know how tough it is. That's why I'm expecting them to lose in the tournament.
You are?
Yeah, you got to win 6 and just matchups. And I guess it comes down to this, and this is the reason why I begrudgingly say that, because Kentucky's defense rarely takes a night off. Offense is going to be the key. If they have one of those nights where they're not making those shots, then I think it's going to be different. Man, you got to be able to rebound against Kentucky, control the tempo. Easier said than done, but I just think somebody is going to do something, and that's why, we watch. So am I rooting for Kentucky? Yes, because you know what? Great teams deserve to be rewarded, and I'd love to see them rewarded. I just think it's really hard to go 6 straight games here.
And it's a great story, you heard not too much, I have to say, but you heard a little bit percolating the old line of, is it good to have a dominant team, which is obviously stupid. Check out the golf ratings when Tiger's not, not where he used to be. So it's all anybody's talking about. The biggest story people are talking about for the tournament. I think it's a great story. I've been rooting for it because I think it's a fun story for the tournament. But the thing is, especially once they get to Indianapolis, if they have to play, let's say, Wisconsin or Arizona. Those are 2 teams where Kentucky's not just going to be able to beast them on the boards. So the question is going to come down to, can Kentucky score in their half-court offense? Yeah. They've gotten very reliant, understandably so, on just throwing it inside to Karl Anthony Towns. But when you have players like Wisconsin does, like Arizona does, like Duke does, that have some size inside where they can't just beat you on the offensive glass, they've got to make jump shots. And they've been a little bit inconsistent in that regard. So maybe that'll end up being their kryptonite. I'll say this, though. They're a really, really good free throw shooting team, and that hasn't always been the case. So it's going to be you're going to need some help from Kentucky if you're going to beat them.
Absolutely. Seth Davis from CBS Sports Illustrated joining us, Dan Patrick Show. How many teams could make the Final Four?
Oh, a lot of teams can make the final. I would say any team that's in the top 5 lines can make the Final Four. Certainly, the top 3 lines. I picked Northern Iowa to go up. I'm just grasping at stuff, but I think they're a good team. They've only lost 3 games all year. You look at the 4 line, you see North Carolina there, you see Maryland there, Louisville. It's. And if you look over the years, last year we had a 7 seed versus an 8 seed in the national championship game. So again, that's the nature of the NCAA tournament, and that's what makes it so fun.
I'm trying to figure out the selection committee. Are they changing the rules as they go along? You know, the site test, I think they said they've always had that in place, although we just heard about it recently. Is the RPI now out, that they're not factoring that in as much as they used to? Help me here.
You know, they're just 10 people who are looking at the numbers and watching the teams. You know, I can tell you that eye test matters a lot more than people realize. Whenever I talk to these folks, I'll always say to them, okay, off the record, let's talk this team, that team, what do you think? A lot of times they say, you know what, I've seen them. I like them, or I've seen them, and they don't look so good to me. And they, believe me, they watch. And this notion of, well, you should have basketball people on the committee. I don't think basketball is nuclear physics. If you're going to put in the hours to watch these teams, you're going to have a pretty good feel for what's going on. And I think all of us who, you know, agree or disagree with what they do, you know, need to do so with a measure of respect, because it is very subjective. Like, just because I think that UCLA didn't deserve to be in doesn't necessarily make me right. I'm going to make my case. Yeah. I think the larger issue, Dan, with UCLA and Texas is those teams have so many good games baked into their schedule, and they have such an easier ability to get good games outside their league that if they don't take care of business, I don't think that should be rewarded. UCLA, not only do they not belong in this tournament, in my humble opinion, but to not even have them in the first four, to give them a bye into the first round, I mean, that's, you know, they got 2 top 50 wins, both came at home. Remember they played against Kentucky?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to beat Kentucky, but if you can't get to double digits by halftime, maybe you don't pass the eye test. So that one really bothered me. I mean, who in America wouldn't rather see Murray State play in this tournament than UCLA or Texas? I mean, that's what March Madness is all about. So I like them to reach out more to those teams, because UCLA and Texas, they're not going to Murray, Kentucky to play those guys. They'd be crazy to do that. So I'm just trying to, you know, advocate for a little bit more equity here.
Yeah, I don't have sympathy for those on the bubble, those on the outside looking in today. If you can't make the field of 68, Seth, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, you know what? If you've put I agree with the notion of if you put the game in the hands of the refs, then you have no right to complain at the end. But you do have to recognize the inherent disadvantage in terms of scheduling. I mean, Texas went 3-12 against the top 50. So they got 15 games against teams in the top 50 just because they're Texas. And they didn't win enough games. So, you know, where Murray State, you know, maybe they need to do it. And I've talked to Steve Prohm, their coach, about it. Like, you got to have a near suicidal attitude towards your schedule. We'll play any team on your home court for 1 year, and you don't have to return it. Because if you want to be that team, you got to play those games.
But, Seth, the committee has got to understand this. They got to be smart enough to understand just because you played a good schedule, but you didn't have success in that good schedule, doesn't make you better than a team that couldn't, you know, that nobody's going to give you a home and home if you're Murray State.
Yeah, I know. And also the reality is, you know, we can't make these decisions based on how we wish the world was. You know, at the end of the day, Murray State had one win against a team ranked in the top 100 of the RPI. Temple, just as an example of a bubble team that didn't make it, had 8. So, you know, you can say, well, I think Murray's good. They passed the eye test for me, but the reality is they didn't play those games. They don't have those wins. We can't put them in. So I get that part of it too, but I don't think the benefactor of that should be UCLA.
The player we don't know now, but we will know in 2 weeks is who?
The magically named Seth Tuttle, senior forward for Northern Iowa. I had him as a first-team All-American. Northern Iowa lost 3 games all season long, Dan. They were trailing Illinois State by, I think, 15 points in the Missouri Valley Conference Championship game. It may have been 18, actually, in the first half, and they methodically came back and won. They had that look to me of a team, and Tuttle leads them in points, rebounds, and assists. He's a 44% three-point shooter, 6'9" senior forward, can step out. Everybody plays around him. I have Northern Iowa going to the Final Four. If you're going to take a chance, to me, on an underseeded 5 seed who is the champion of its own conference, beat Wichita State, I like the Panthers a lot.
Did you learn anything from the Laettner documentary?
Yeah, I'm old. A lot of great memories, and you know what? I was Christian Laettner's class at Duke, so we were in the same freshman dorm, and you know, covered him for 4 years at the student newspaper. Let me say 2 things. First of all, it seems that he's in a really nice place with his family. At the end, he talked about, you know, doesn't matter what people think of me, being a husband and a father. And I'll also say this: the whole thing. I love that they got into the whole thing about the gay rumors. I can only tell you, and I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. I can only tell you as a student at Duke, there was never any gay rumor. Nobody ever thought he was gay. There was never any, well, I thought this or I saw him there. It was interesting how that kind of perceived, and I actually wrote a column about that, about what that said about people's attitudes towards gay people and the taunts that, no one was speaking out against. But he's a fascinating character and one of the great college players of all time. And you're a young man, but I am definitely getting older very fast.
But I remember going to Minnesota when he got drafted, and he addressed the gay rumors with Brian Davis, and he just said, look, we were just having fun. It was more about people's attitude that they got a kick out. This is Laettner just tweaking everybody.
He made... There was a quote that he gave to the Raleigh News and Observer about his friendship with Brian Davis, and I remember there were some chuckles and snickers about that, but it was never like, oh, I actually think this. And what happened was Curry Kirkpatrick, who was a friend of mine, a great writer, a great reporter, but he wrote that article in Sports Illustrated saying that led to rumors around campus that Laettner was gay. I am telling you, I was on that campus for 4 years. There was never a rumor that he was gay. That gave it a whole new fuel. But to me, the interesting part, I didn't care whether he was gay or not. Nobody did. But what it was interesting was that was a time when it was a lot more socially acceptable to jeer at somebody in a public setting because of that. And that was what struck me as a writer at the student newspaper. And I wrote a column about this, saying, what is that? Forget about what it says about Laettner. What does it say about us that he's going into these arenas and people are doing this and no one's saying, hey, that's wrong. We wouldn't accept the racial taunt. So it was an interesting, it was something that he had no control over and Brian had no control over. But I'm just telling you, I was there, and there was never a rumor, there was never a thought, and it just kind of spun off on its own. And he's an interesting guy. I'm glad he's in a good place in his life.
But we'll never have that kind of tension around college basketball again.
We'll never have that kind of tension because why?
We don't have somebody you hate. He was there 4 years. You knew everything about them. The storylines there. They were on TV. They were the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Yankees. And it's not just Laettner, but it's, when Georgetown would play St. John's.
Right.
These players were there. We knew them. There was a rivalry. You loved Georgetown or hated them. Duke, you loved or you hated. Kentucky, do you?
I was going to say, would Kentucky be?
No, I don't think there's any, vitriol towards Kentucky. It's towards John Calipari because people think he cheats. But
right,
not these kids. These kids play hard. They play defense. They share. They seem like a great team. There's no animosity there.
Well, I think anytime, first of all, if they do complete this and win their second title in 3 years, in 4 years, and first team in 39 years to go undefeated, I think that will ramp up a notch. So I think Calipari.
Yeah, but those kids will all be gone, Seth.
What's that?
Those kids will all be gone.
Yeah, but Calipari will still be there.
No,
and Kentucky will still be there.
They may dislike John, but we're talking about players. That's the problem with college basketball. It's all about coaches.
Yeah.
It used to be about players. And that's the difference now. We're not going to have that. I know those guys. I hate those guys, but I'm going to watch every night. Kentucky, it's a whole new group coming in next year.
Yeah, you certainly don't get that year-to-year familiarity. But, the coaches have always been the stars in college basketball, and that's the way it is, man. That's the way it is. People watch it. People love it. College basketball fans love it, and NBA fans watch the NBA for the players, and you get two different things. And I'll tell you what, man, I know this. People love this tournament. I always say there's college basketball, and then there's the tournament. And the tournament really transcends a lot of things.
Good to talk to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Great to talk to you, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Love you, Seth.
Dan, I love you too.
All right, Seth Davis from Sports Illustrated and CBS.